All right, we are live.
Well, hello there, and welcome to Consciousness Caffeine Radio. This is Rainbow Warrior Goddess Lisa and my co-host,
The Debt Master.
And today on Consciousness Caffeine, we have yet another amazing Rainbow Warrior here to help find sustainable solutions for the planet and living her dream. Her name is Ryll Doyle. She's growth and strategy advisor at 90 Degrees, an invested mentor and author. Listen and learn how you too can invest in your success in order to thrive in your soul-inspired journey and rock your brand. Also, how you too can join the wave and free yourselves and those you love and the planet from poverty. She's had a really interesting story, and we're going to let her share that in a minute. But I mean, from 23 years old with no credit and $1,100 to her name, she built her business up to $1 million business. Her book, Business is Getting Results, is huge and thriving, and she's turned it into this whole amalgamation of so many different things all wrapped into one, and I really look forward to hearing her story. Brett, you actually met her first, correct, sweetie?
I did. Actually, I've done the Money in You course. I was lucky enough to do it this year in Brisbane. It's honestly one of the amazing moments in my life. The great thing as well, you can go back and do it over and over again once you've done it the first time. There's no limits on how many times you can do it again. And when I realized we were doing this radio show, like there's people that I had in my mind that I listed up that I wanted to interview, and Ryll was definitely one of them, because we not just did the course, but I got to stay in a house. I went up there with a whole group. Yeah, a whole group of us went up. There's about 8 of us. So we did it together. And that's what it really is about. You know, the Money in You really is about like finding your tribe. And it's funny because the actual name doesn't sound really cool, I have to say, but the content and the course is amazing. Like I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about the 4 days or 3.5 days that we did in Brisbane. Like absolutely amazing. Dom, who is the instructor, he is incredible. And Ryll and Craig, who just kind of sit at the back, looking over everyone, smiling as you're doing, thinking, yeah, I've done this. I know what you're thinking about, right? And
so it sounds like she's actually somehow managed to bring consciousness, connection, money, and some kind of spirituality into this. I'm really looking forward to your story. Ryll, welcome to Consciousness Caffeine.
Hi.
What would you like? You're welcome. Thank you for joining us today. And just so you know, our format, we usually start with you sharing your story. How did you get here today? What was Ryll's story? How did you go from 23 and no credit to where you are today? I mean, it's an amazing journey, and our listeners look forward to hearing it. So why don't you go, guys?
Well, thank you, Lisa and Brett, for having me. This is very cool. My story, I guess the biggest part for me is that I was very clear really early that I didn't want just a normal life, I guess you'd say. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but for me, I just felt like, you know what, doing the 9-to-5 thing is I'm gonna die. It's gonna kill me. And I knew that really early. I knew I wanted my life to be about something, but I didn't know what. And I just wanted to do something, but I could never put my finger on it. It was just like my deepest desire kind of thing. Anyway, I did go for it. I went to uni, did a degree, came out, got my dream, won a role over 400 other people, got my dream job, started consulting when I was 21. So I started advising other business owners on how to grow their businesses at 21, which sounds crazy because most of my clients were 20 and, you know, at least double my age, if not 3 times my age. So, and mostly men, and this is in the early 90s. So, and we did all of it by phone. We never actually met the clients. So it was a crazy, amazing opportunity I got given. And I pretty much learned how to grow any business in a really short space of time. In the 2 years I was there, I probably had about 10 years experience because of the nature of all the different businesses that I worked on. But I started to notice that there was more to business than just sales and marketing, because that was mostly our focus, was helping them grow through sales and marketing. And I started to notice there was more to business than that. There was, if you made the phone ring and people weren't trained properly, you're going to burn every lead you generated anyway. If you weren't funded properly, you could actually grow and cause financial stress, or worse, if you didn't have the right operating systems, etc. So I started to see all of that. I got to meet and work with some amazing people in that period, but one of the things that happened was that I got lucky enough to do a program called Money in You when I was 23. And Money in You has, the woman who has had the rights to Money in You globally for the last nearly 40 years is a woman named Dame DC Cordova. And DC's purpose in life, her entire life, has been dedicated to uplifting humanity's consciousness through social enterprise. So Money in You has generated more multimillionaires on the planet than any other program. It's also probably how you would say that is conscious multimillionaires. Yes. And contribution-based people. So essentially, you know, the program was talking about social enterprise in the late 70s. Now everybody talks about that. You know, it's just a thing that we all assume is how you do business. But in fact, it's taken 40 years to get that to be the norm, right? So I was lucky enough to do that program when I was 23.
I said you were way ahead of your time.
What's that?
He and you are way ahead of your time.
Yeah. So the Money in You is based on the work of 6 different masters in their fields, and one of them is a gentleman named Buckminster Fuller, who some of your people will have heard of.
Oh, we're very familiar with Buckminster Fuller here. Okay,
so anyone who does Money in You, we nickname them a Buccaneer, because a lot of the work of Money in You is based around Bucky's work. So, you know, Bucky's fundamental question is, how do you have the world work for 100% of humanity with nobody left out and the least amount of ecological damage possible, et cetera, et cetera. So DC's life has been to fulfill that answer, and her, through Money in You was designed with Bucky. So Bucky co-created it. His work is all through the thing. And anyway, so it's amazing. Brett, I totally get the title piece about Money in You. Because it's much more than that. It is about a spiritual journey. It is about reconnecting at the heart level. It is about entrepreneurship, and it is about wealth. And one of the things I find really interesting that I'd love to talk more about is that there is this fundamental belief, and it's a falsity, I think, for a lot of people, sort of in the consciousness movement or whatever you want to call it. I don't even know what you call it. Where there is a belief that you can't have both. You can't be wealthy and be someone who's committed to the planet and humanity and all that jazz. Well, I think that's total, absolute rubbish. So
if you want.
That's okay, good. I think that's absolute rubbish. And in fact, I think it's actually up to people who want to make a difference to get sustainable themselves. Yeah. Because you can't make anywhere near the difference you can make when you've got resources. Money's just a resource. Money's a tool, and it comes from the exchange of value and energy, but it's a tool. And the more tools you've got to make a difference, the better off the planet is for you to make your own unique difference. So for me, that thinking that's in that world, and the other thinking that drives me crazy is I'm just gonna meditate, and I'm just going to trust that the universe is going to bring me it. I'm like, I totally get it, right? I get all of that, but the universe doesn't work alone. You have to get off your ass. You have to actually participate in partnership, or nothing's going to happen. Has been certainly my experience. So I think there's a couple of fundamental errors people make in that they say that you can't do good and do well. Well, that's absolutely not true. In fact, you should do well and do good. Or you can. Not should, but you can. And no, it's not going to happen if you wish it, think it, want it, hope it. You're actually going to have to add value somewhere along the chain where you get paid for that, and then you can do whatever you want with whatever you generate out of that. You know, there's lots to talk around that mindset. But just I'm already off into the different topics because it's a very fun topic for me and passionate topic for me. And I think for people who are out to make a difference, it's really, really important to deal with yourself about your wealth and your money, because you cannot make the difference you're here to make if you are at the scale to which you'd like to make it, if you do not have the ability to attract people with money or to attract money to yourself, to your project, whatever it is, to add value such that you get paid in a way. And I know that I created a non-profit foundation, which I'll share more about, and I know exactly what that feels like. So really important to deal with all that stuff if you want to make a difference, in my experience. So back to my story, got lucky enough to do Money in You when I was 23. Had gone through a horrible personal period, my family breaking up, which was just a devastating, completely unexpected blow, and kind of got healed at Money in You, where I finally figured out after 5 years of that devastation that maybe there was nothing wrong with me, actually. Maybe I was okay. Maybe I was just a bit heartbroken about that, and that maybe that didn't have to define the rest of my life. So, and I learned so much about business in those 3.5 days. It was unbelievable. And the thing about the program, the way it's designed, is it actually just gets in. It's not like you have to remember it or train it. For sure, there's depth of mastery that comes with years of practice, but it kind of gets in at whatever level you're at right at that time to make the biggest difference you can make in your own life and others at that time. So for me, 6 months later, the natural thing to do was have my own business, because I had noticed that you could grow businesses with sales and marketing, but it was a much bigger conversation about how do you create a whole successful business? How do you make sure the funding's right? How do you make sure the systems are right, the team, the operations, the legals, the delivery, the customer service, all that stuff, as well as the sales and marketing. You can make the phone ring, but as I said before, if you can't fund it or take care of it or deliver, then there's no point. So I got really interested. I also got to meet, because I did Money in You, I got mentored by some amazing people like Robert Kiyosaki. Some people love him and hate him these days. Doesn't matter. He was an incredible mentor, has put some amazing stuff into the market to get people thinking. And other people like Dom, who's still an instructor for Dominic Leone, who's now got a $150 million business and 350 staff work for him, and got an amazing culture in his company that reflects the culture of Money in You, which is about personal responsibility, making a difference. And Blair Singer and Dame DC Cordova, and I just had all these amazing mentors, because like Brett said, when you do Money in You, you can go back time and time again. So I just kept putting myself in the space, and I used to PA for Robert every time he came to Brisbane, or for Blair, or for any of those guys, so I could just hang out with them and learn all I could. And anyway, so it seemed natural for me to start my own business. I had $1,100 to my name. I had no credit because I'd blown all that when I was 18. And so I started my own business. And the only thing I think that saved me, because if you think about it, my odds were really bad. I was 23. I'd had one real job. I'd never had a business of my own. I was a woman. I was 23. And most of my clients were going to be 2 or 3 times my age. And the business I created was about strategic. It was about business planning and strategic consulting. Well, in the early 90s in Australia, people didn't do that. Americans did that. Australians did not do that. So business planning was a whole new, what's this crazy new thing we're doing called business planning, right? So it was a new sector, and all those other things I already said. Oh, and the internet didn't exist. Oh, so it was much harder to get to people. You had to physically get to them, right? So if I look back now, I go, that was doomed to failure. Like, no wonder my parents were freaking out. I was leaving this ridiculously well-paid role to go and start my own business. But anyway, at the time, I didn't see any of that. I just saw it was possible. And that's pretty much been my jam, I guess, my whole life. I don't see any of that other stuff. I just see my intent, why, and what it's going to look like, and go for that. So, and I also was young enough to know I didn't know what I was doing. That definitely worked. That definitely worked in my favor, because, you know, by the time you're my age now, or our age, you think you know a lot of stuff, right? We pretty much have some things down. We're like, no, I get how that works. No, I've done that before, blah, blah, blah. But I was young enough to know I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So I just followed what mentors said. So I followed what I learned at Money in You. And there's one piece of Money in You called the business success model. And it's not even, Brett, it's like a flash, really. Compared to the 3.5 days of Money in You, it's probably not even an hour. But it is fundamentally, if I look back, that one little triangle with 7 different levels in it has created any success I've ever had. And any failure I've ever had, I haven't done that. Wow. So So I was lucky enough to realise that I was young enough to know what I was doing, to not know what I was doing. I followed that system. We grew that business to be the largest provider of our type in our state within 2 years. We grew the business to be from $1,100 to over $1 million in revenue. I systemised the business so it ran without me. I took 6 months off and travelled to the US, having a great time. Came home, decided I wanted to sell it. Sold it successfully for 6 figures it was 3.5 years after I started it. So that was my first experience in business, and it was it was an amazing learning experience, and it was a good experience. That's how you do it. And then I moved to the States. I became a published author of, as you said, Business is Getting Results, which is a knowledge base of 2,000 pages of marketing management strategies for small to medium-sized enterprises that's still used around the world today, mostly delivered through accounting firms. I also helped build the largest independent brand of accountants in the world outside of CPA and CA with my mentor, Paul Donna. And then I made the switch from all that consulting and advisory world that I'd been in to working as what we call a brand strategist in San Francisco. By now I'm living in the States, I'm living in San Fran, and now I moved and took a role as a brand strategist, and my clients became billion-dollar companies and $400 million companies and dot-com startups in the dot-com boom. So I learned, the thing I really learned, 2 things I really learned from that experience was big businesses. Michael Gerber, who wrote a book called The E-Myth Revisited, it's now revisited. It's called The E-Myth Revisited. You have to read it if you're in business. If you haven't read it, you've got to get it. Anyway, he says a big business is just a small business that do the right things, and I totally think that that's accurate.
Yeah.
And what I noticed about big businesses is that they also get to a point where they're completely complacent. They're arrogant. They don't, like I had been taught grassroots, small business, fast growth stuff. And you could implement that in big businesses, but they just weren't interested. Why would they do that? They didn't need to do that. But they could have made such a bigger difference with their clients. So I found that very frustrating because I was like, hang on a minute. First of all, there's all this opportunity here for you. And second of all, you could make this bigger difference. Why wouldn't you do that? But why would they need to? So I found that I like the smaller size businesses to play with and make a difference with because you can see the impact quicker and you can move faster. But that was an amazing learning experience, and yeah, there was the second thing I got out of that whole process was really that confirmation that it doesn't matter big or small. Communicating with your market, making a difference, adding value, it really makes no difference the size of business you are, but you aren't going to get successful, you aren't going to get big if you don't have that handled first. How do you add value? How do you make a difference? Where are you adding value to? To how many people, and how many more people could you do so?
Yep.
So that was an incredible experience. And then I got headhunted by a client and became the vice president of a company in the US and grew that business by about boatloads in 16 months by about 300%. And my personal journey then, I hadn't done any personal, when I did Money and You, I did heaps of personal development. I did everything. I did NLP, I did rebirthing, I did, auditing, I did all sorts of jazz, just crazy stuff. And, but it was all great for me. It was all good. It was healing. But by this time, I had at some point gone, that's enough now, not doing any more of that stuff. And then somewhat my CEO recommended that I do the Landmark Forum. And I was like, no, talk to the hand. I don't want to do any of that stuff. People get dramatic. I'm not interested. But anyway, I finally did that. And it changed who I was as a leader in business. Definitely added that other dimension, which had been a long time since I've done Money and You. I did that when I was 23. This is now I'm 30-something. And it also cleared the cobwebs out because now I'd had a business, I'd sold it successfully, I'd met my goal of living in the States because I'd wanted to do that since I was 19. I'd got a visa there, I'd done all of that. I'd made the move to big companies versus small business. I'd lived in 4 different parts of the US and loved it. And I was kind of thinking, what's next? What's my life going to be about? Where is the thing I thought I'd be doing which would be making a difference or doing something of value? And you know, going through another round of personal development, which I fundamentally think is what we have to do. I remembered that I cared about underprivileged kids, teenagers in particular, and inspiring young girls to go into business. So I cleared out the cobwebs of my mind. I remembered I gave a shit about that stuff. And so I came home to Australia to create a non-profit foundation called Step Up, where we worked with teenagers 14 to 18 years old, and came home to Australia. So from the first time I'd had that thought was 8 years earlier, but by the time I came home to Australia, it was 13 weeks from the minute I landed at home to when we had our first 2-day event with 227 kids at it, and we raised $204,000 worth of free stuff for the teens. So it was 8 years and 13 weeks between that first idea and that first execution. But and then I grew that brand, again, using the same principles, grew that brand to 3 countries, ran it for a decade, reached something like 20,000, just under 20,000 underprivileged kids, and shifted their futures forever. So that was my nonprofit venture, which I'd love to talk more about in terms of people generating, doing good things and doing well. And then from there, I created my biggest financial success was I raised 1.8 million in 2 weeks once to start another venture that I created. And
this seems to be
in 2 weeks.
No, our last investor with nothing except a vision from a meditation built gut funding. He raised $750,000 in 3 weeks, the first time ever trying to raise a penny. But
yeah, that was my first time. That was my first time as well. So I'd say there was about 4 weeks in the planning and 2 weeks in the execution, and we did all over the phone. I never met any of the people that put the money in other than a phone call. So that was amazing. We made all of our everyone was shareholders, and we created this unique franchise model where, again, I was working with accountants. I had come back to Australia. I'd created Step Up. I'd continued to consult to very large brands here in Australia, but my passion was really, look, small business is where it's at for me. You can impact communities through small business. If you have a small business that's thriving, they're going to employ 3 or 4 or 5 people, maybe 20, maybe 30, maybe 100 in their local community. So to me, that's where the rubber meets the road, and that's where my passion has always been. So that business was about working with accounting firms and making a difference to the small business community of Australia and New Zealand, and also funding Step Up at the same time. So that business donated 10% of profits and 10,000 from every franchise sale to Step Up. So we raised about $1 million out of the operation of that business, which was great. So, and the business made a difference on the ground with clients. It was fantastic. But that was certainly where I had my first and most significant, most painful, most difficult financial learning experience. In the end, bad stuff happened. I won't go into it unless you want to ask me questions about it. But we transitioned, and a $50 million group out of Sydney took the business over, and I lost Step Up Foundation as part of that. So I lost my baby, but you can't really lose something you're the source of, so we'll probably recreate it in a different way at some point soon. My husband's banging on the door every day.
You just went through a death and rebirth. Like, you went through a death and rebirth, and in transition, there is a lot of loss sometimes, but it's like energy, which is like money. It just changes form. So you were the caterpillar becoming the butterfly. I call it dying without changing bodies. But if you let me just jump for a sec, this is amazing. No, because you and I hadn't met very much. I know you worked with Brett, but I was a left brainer. I went to school for genetic engineering and then came into the whole spirit. I grew up on Martha's Vineyard, but I was one of the locals. I wasn't one of the billionaires, the Soroses or the people like that come to the island, the Kennedys. So I was very much, and Catholic as well. So I was raised with the "you are less than" and "you will never be us" kind of sovereign, poverty consciousness, servant mentality. But at the same time, was told to work. And I've created my own businesses throughout my life. But what I love about you, right from the gut, first of all, you mentioned a lot of things. You only saw potential. You did not see limitation. You had the heart of a child, which is curious and creative. You didn't see the limitation. You didn't come from the fear, I can't do this, which is what so many people have blocking in their head. And then the money in you is based on Bucky, who I love. When I think of Bucky, I think of don't waste your energy destroying the thing that's falling apart. Get co-creative and focus your energy on building what's going to replace it. And that's really so key, because I used to spend years on what's wrong in the world. And now the whole birth of the show is taking my wisdom from giving everything and burning myself out, living without money. When I found out about the fiat money system and all that, I tried to live the best without money and bartering. And let me tell you, I did it, and I did it pretty well for someone who did it, but it makes you a social pariah. Money is simply how we have decided as human beings how to exchange our life force. It does have value. Yeah, maybe that system's rigged, but that's changing too. And you're the perfect example. So you go from that, you start up this huge business, and then you go into more like the artsy form. I would say the artsy, because branding is about an idea and a vision. And then you get into the business, and my whole thing was that even though I had my own businesses, I felt like I had to have guilt or shame for being successful because of these poor starving people who didn't have an education and blah, blah. I went to the whole bleeding heart thing like that. Yeah. And then came very conclusively to you can't live without money. And you know what? What I'm going to do is I'm not going to apologize for using the system I'm forced into. A single person, I have not been able to change it. So I'm going to change my thinking about it. And that's exactly what it was. But then you went into the business thing, and my whole thing was business is evil. Business is a parasite. Corporations are awful. And that really didn't serve me, trying to build my own, you know. But you've taken, as you said, business with the intention can build value for a community, as opposed to Walmart going out and sucking every mom and pop business in an area. This is simply the transition. Nothing that we have on this planet is really going away. We're just trying to take the best use of it, to take it, break it apart, get rid of maybe a couple little pieces that didn't work so well, and put it back together to a higher evolution with new things thrown in. That's what the process of syntropy is. And you've done it by marrying business, spirituality, and personal growth to give people a product that they can create more value in their life. And so even just grokking, you're amazing. I love this. I love this. People.
Thank you.
I'm one of those people who is like, no, I can't have money. I'm a bad person if I use money. And, you know, oh, I can't have nice clothes. And bullshit. I've always been attracted to quality and value. I just was scoured because of my perception. So I rebuilt my perception. I went out and did what everybody said I couldn't do. We won't go there. But we're going to bring it back to you on this. But this is amazing. So that's and then you bring in unity consciousness to it.
There is a
fundraising and the service. That's the term I utilize. Unity consciousness, where we're all one until we all have what we need. We're not a complete whole society or a healthy society.
Correct. I think that's true. I mean, you can't really. And that's not to say, you know, we go and have luxury weekends away and we do stuff and we love it. And when we're there, we don't go, geez, we feel bad about all the people who aren't. We worked hard to do that. We cleared up, we did whatever we had to do. And we continually have to do that, by the way, because that self-sabotage pull to be like the rest of the tribe is ridiculously hard. It's ridiculously strong in my experience. So, so just for me, I mean, Buckminster Fuller says roughly, I'm not quoting him right, but one of the things that rang true for me and has been something, there's two things that have been the premise of my work my whole life. And one was Tom Peters, who wrote a book called In Search of Excellence in the 90s. He said, we are rewarded to the extent to which we add value. And that meant personally, professionally, business and otherwise. And it's a huge premise of Money and You, is that you are no way going to be wealthy unless you're about contribution and service to others, adding value to others. And that just worked for me. I guess that was how that to me just makes total sense, because a business is designed to solve problems. A business is designed to solve problems. That's it. It's designed to solve problems and add value to the people who have that problem. So if you do a really good job of that, you get paid well for it. That's just simple. Yep. So for me, that and the other thing that Bucky said is that if you see it, when we talk about this at Money and You, is that the premise is there's only one me, there's only one you, there's only one Brett, there's only one of each of the people that are listening to this. And each of us have such a unique, we have a lot of similarities as a human experience, but we have such a unique perspective on the world that Buckminster Fuller's take was that if you see a job that needs doing, it's your job. So if you see a job that needs doing, it's your job. So there's this great guy named Peter Meissen. Peter Meissen's based out of San Diego or Southern California somewhere. He did Money and You years ago. He was part of the team that met and worked with Bucky, and he kept seeing this thing about the sharing of energy, electrical grids, right? And he kept seeing that in his head as the way to solve, because even today people are still talking about if we can share energy with the third world countries, they will no longer be in poverty. They won't continue to have lots of babies. Energy equals development and more closer equality and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
So anyway, so Peter saw this crazy job about sharing energy across the planet, building a grid that would share energy from the countries that were producing the most of it to the countries that were producing the least of it, and round we went. And so he's sitting there and doesn't know anything about that, and he's sitting in, I do that, but I don't know anything about that. And all he kept hearing was, if you see a job that needs doing, it's your job. So for his life now, he has dedicated his life to having world governments share energy with each other, and has progressed that work on the planet massively. And it was the same for me. I kept hearing Bucky's thing when I was going to do Step Up. I didn't know anything about teenage kids. I didn't know anything about being underprivileged or at risk. I didn't know anything when I was living in America about being African American. Nothing about any of that. And yet all I could keep seeing was what I thought was necessary to inspire them about what's possible in life, no matter where they were starting from. So I think for those people here who have a driving force, never doubt that you're supposed to have that thought. You're supposed to have that thought, and your job, in my view, just my opinion, you can take it or leave it, is you have to get yourself as healthy and strong as possible, financially and otherwise, to be able to deliver that to the planet. So Go, Lisa, I'll stop talking.
No, it's just, and I'm letting you go because this is a new avenue of bringing a very left brain and right brain thing. But I was curious as to how good he did on funding, because we also re-educate people to what we're taught a lot is not accurate. But it's also what we make it and how we perceive it. And when you perceive it differently, things change. But from my perspective, I used to be the energy conservation chairman for the Sierra Club in Grand Canyon chapter when I lived in Sedona. And what I found out when I got into trying to help save the environment was that there were very good groups like the Sierra Club that attracted a lot of people who wanted to make change. But when I got to the top of that link, I was allowed to do anything but bring in change. I'm like, let's remove limited liability from corporations so they have to pay if they destroy our earth. That right there would create a much more sustainable model in business and all of this, and they would not go anywhere near that. I'm also very well aware that, with Tesla and his energies, and that we have over 1,500 energy patents alone in the US that are kept from the people of this world for reasons of national security. I even know the green technologies, while they're better, it's just about making it griddable, because we already have the technology to be able to live without energy, and that would end it all. Because everything is there's more money because you got to ship around the world, or you got to build the grid to get it so somebody can control it. I'm curious as to how he got funded, because I've met people who've created certain energy machines and things like this, who meet people in black suits that tell them to fill out a blank check and disappear, or their family's going to start disappearing, or something to the like of that. Yeah, how did he get funded?
You'd have to ask Peter. I can't tell you, other than I know that money and new graduates all over the planet, of which there's tens of thousands, have donated to his particular project. And you'd have to ask him. Honestly, I can't tell you. But I know he still operates. I know he's still doing that work. I know it's been a long time. I think he's been at it nearly 30 years, or 20-something. He started at 30-something, didn't know anything about it, and then just had the chutzpah to just go and bang on the doors of various governments and say, hey, how about it? And some of them said yes, 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 including Australia, and some of them said no, like the US. So,
of course.
Anyway, he's got his own unique story. He'd probably be someone you should interview. He'd be great.
Yeah, yeah.
I would love that. It's all about co-creation. Brett, why don't you? I know you're dying. I had to just jump in at first. I was so inspired by your story.
What you're talking about, Lisa.
What's Whitty?
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm actually talking. I'm actually just tweeting it out and trying to get people live on the show. So I have been quietly working while you guys have been chatting away. I guess I had the same thing. I started my first business at 18. I kind of dropped out of school at 16, and then I borrowed 16 grand. My parents put the house up for credit so I could buy this business, and then it failed in 2 years. But I knew, like you, I knew deep down that you just have to do it. And I had no idea how to run a business. I had no idea. Like, I was only doing plastering for 2 or 3 years, and then I bought the guy out that wanted to retire. And And I just knew that I could do it, but
Yep.
I didn't know what I was doing.
Yep.
And I think that's the biggest thing people, especially young people, need to know these days. They really just, if you have any kind of dream, just open it up and go for it. Don't worry about failing. Like, you actually, the failing is the best part, because you've learnt something. And, you know, that's what you want to keep doing. The sooner you fail, the quicker you learn. The bada bing, bada boom, you're a millionaire. Well, not
So there's a whole expression about failing forward, right?
Yeah.
As long as you learn something and keep going, pick yourself back up. But failing is hard. I mean, particularly the bigger game you play, the further you've got to fall, right? So it hurts a lot. Like, certainly when I lost everything, it hurt. It hurt a lot, and it took a long time to recover. It took a long time emotionally to recover from that. And really, it was only for me when I started, what would you call it? Remembering, reapplying, thinking through what I knew to be true from what I'd been taught so early in my new, and also what we had stood for and taught thousands of young people around the world through Step Up. That I really started to come back to the light, I guess you'd call it, instead of living in this horrible dark place that I had been in. So, I mean, we still kept working. We launched during that period, which was the worst period of my life in business. We still co-created and launched a sustainably farmed milk that's sold in Coles here in Australia, which is, you know, there's only 2 major supermarkets, and that's one of them. And it's sold in Coles. I did a deal with the milk processor where the farmer owns the milk from beginning to end. It was the first time that deal had been done in 100 years.
Wow, was that you?
And I did the deal with Coles in 3 meetings. And it was really working with 5 farming families that had no real business acumen other than their experiences as dairy farmers, which is a particular type of business and has a particular ins and outs, different to a standard business. So it was that we did that and I got 2.2 million worth of free press and publicity for that project to get that milk launched and get it sustainable, and it still runs today. We have equity in that, and that's what we call being an invested mentor. So typically what we do is work with people who have a great idea or a great initiative and are willing to take the coaching to actually have it become real in the world, because a special thing that I have recognised, and we all have special things, and often, particularly in Australia, we don't like to talk about that stuff because it's all tall poppy and blah, blah, blah. But something I now know at this age, at 47, is that I am really good at creating something from nothing. I'm really good at it. Like, I've been doing that forever. So I did that when I was 23. I did it with Step Up. I did it with the milk. I've done it in every business I've ever had. I've just gone, that's something that should be done. That could be done. That could really work. I could see how that can work. Okay, I'm doing it. And my mantra I used to teach the kids at Step Up was, everyone's going to have an opinion. And the only opinion that matters is yours and your target audience.
Yeah.
And your team. But basically your market is the opinion that matters. Your opinion doesn't even matter. In terms of branding, when we talk about branding for a minute, the biggest problem people have around building their brands is they get attached to them personally. Oh, well, I really like blue and I really like yellow. Well, piss off. Does your market like blue and yellow? Probably not, because yellow is a hippy-dippy, happy colour, and that's generally not where people put their money. So, you know, what colour speaks most, what colour and shapes, because colours and shapes communicate instantly. If I say the colour red, and I say, now think about what comes to mind when I say the word red, you will have a list of things that come to mind when I say the colour red, right?
And you will, and I'll have something different.
Yeah, but, well, actually, it's amazing how similar we have it. So they'll all be there. So someone might say red's bold and passionate. Someone else might say, oh, it's a warning. But in the person who says warning, they'll come with bold and passionate. I mean, it's just colours communicate. It's another level of language that we've all got, and same with shapes. So when you're designing a brand is much more than a logo, right? So I'm just talking about the logo piece for a minute here. People get very attached to what that looks like, when actually your opinion doesn't matter. As long as you can be proud of it and own it, that's all that matters. What matters is if it speaks to your target audience and communicates the essence, which is something we do a lot of work on in Money New, don't we, Brett? About communicating the essence of your communication. If is whether that brand lands for your target audience and whether they like it, whether it appeals to them and says what you want it to say to that particular market. And then that's true for, I mean, the brand is everything, is everywhere at a business. It's all those touch points. It's the promise of the entire enterprise. It's the promise of the entire exchange, and it's every point of contact you have with the market, whether that's a Facebook ad or someone going to your website or someone ringing you or someone emailing you, and how we deal with those people to them buying from you, and then how we deal with them after that fact. And then internally how we deal with our team is as much about our brand as anything else. I mean, if you think about Uber, Uber's got an external brand that's amazing, everyone loves it, but their internal brand is terrible. They're having these massive internal challenges because they're internally, they didn't live their brand. They weren't of service to each other. So, so branding is really about, being able to communicate what value you're there to add to the people who need it most in the fastest, easiest way, not your opinion about that.
And that's what I love about some of the people who have mentored me. Some of their websites really don't really fly. They're pretty terrible. They're basic, but the message is there. So it's, you know, you can be driving a crappy little Datsun, but as long as you know what you want to teach, you can rock the world.
Well, it's just about what lands in your audience's listening. If they get it, then it doesn't matter. You just got to be proud enough of it to be able to live with it. It's got to be not about your opinion. And that's the number one thing when I work with. I don't do this work much anymore, except in my own entities that I have equity in around branding. But I've done that for nearly 30 years now, and big and small. And the question is, I want you to answer this from your target audience's point of view. And if you don't know them well enough, we can't do this exercise. So, you know, this is not about whether you like the look of that logo or you like that color. It's about does it communicate the essence of what your business is about and the value you're here to add. If it doesn't, do it again.
Okay, speaking of the audience, I want to bring it back around a little because we keep going in a very technical, business-oriented thing, and I don't want to lose the listeners that could be coming. I just want to go back because you're very brilliant and I can follow, but we're going very fast, and I want to swing it back around a little bit. So we went from falling forward, where it's okay to make mistakes. And as a kid, I have a ginormous IQ, but as a kid, I thought I was really stupid because whenever I try anything, and Brett will laugh and probably give you a million examples of this, I have the same spirit as you. I don't see limitation. I just go in and I do what I think I'm supposed to do, and it always works out wrong, and I break something. But I usually learn that before there's too much to lose. I do it in the beginning, so it's actually a gift. And when I became a mom, I had to teach my son that, who was very frustrated at not being successful 100% right off the bat. But it also makes us strong, and it humbles us. So we got into the falling forward, and then I heard you talk about how you lost everything. I've lost everything I own, know, and love more than once in this lifetime. And Brett can verify that as well. But my heart is always what kept me going. I was like this little Duracell bunny. Bing, bing, even when I was broken. Or actually, my mother actually referred to me more like Chucky from the no matter what you do, I can't kill you. But I would keep going. And so that spirit, that like inspires our spirit. When you're down and you're dirty and you don't have any money, you're like, it gives you, it breaks when you're in that dark night of the soul, and you are in your business dark night of the soul, when, oh my God, I've been brought to the heights and now I have nothing. How do I even get up again? In that point of surrender is where you birth your entire, and I was a food activist first. I was a chef for a very long time and realized I was killing people with the food, but raw milk is like at all costs to bring into the market because it's healthy and it will tear down the business and everything that milk's been sold on everywhere else. And so during your dark night of the soul, you were broken down, yet inspired enough, and still were able to create this amazing thing to get raw milk into a Coles Mart. I mean, that's like
raw milk. It's sustainably farmed milk.
So, yes, sustainably farmed milk. Yeah, okay, let's stick to your language.
I would have loved to have done raw milk, but it's just too hard.
Okay, still, it was grass-fed. Yeah. No, I love it, but see, that's the bigger picture. That's how we bring in the audience to your personal story. So, and I love it because you've created this model. Oh, business is nothing, and you did it because you didn't see the limitation. and you've made this archetype with these certain steps that guarantee and have gone across very different markets and energies to create sustainability. It's awesome. Oops,
and that model comes from Money and You. That's not me personally. That was created by those 6 masters in their fields and has been expanded around the world by DC Cordova for all these years. And I was lucky enough to have that education very early. And literally, if I look back, and I'd sort of forgotten, actually, you know, it becomes part of how you operate. And I had forgotten, really, that every time I'd been successful, I'd done those steps in that business success model and everything I got from Money and You. And it was only when my husband and I had the opportunity to partner with this crazy entrepreneur out of Sydney to take 106 entrepreneurs to Antarctica for a think tank. And the think tank was about innovation, sustainability, and entrepreneurship. And why was it done in Antarctica? So you could be present to, this is actually what it's about, and present to the planet Earth, and separate from the crazy stuff that takes us away from doing the real work of thinking and creating. And so we have this unique opportunity to partner to take people to Antarctica, which we did. And one of the people I wanted to have on that trip was Dame DC Cordova, because her life's work has been in Money and You for sure, but really in the last 20 years, first of all, she was a huge participant in the Hunger Project. And then her other work has been around sustainability and renewable energy. So she has a billionaire partner in China. They built the first ever solar city. So there's 7 million people living in a city in China that's run on solar power.
Awesome.
So that's DC's other life. And so we had her in the trip to Antarctica really to talk about that sustainability and renewability piece and bring that to that group of entrepreneurs. But as it turns out, 2 weeks in Antarctica and Chile, and Craig and I came home with the rights to Money and You for Australia and New Zealand, which was not the plan. But
well, that's what I love about, you know, like, you saw the opportunity, and obviously it just came up, and you started talking about it, and before you knew it, you were signing a deal, going, I guess we're doing it. No looking back. Yeah,
and then we piloted it. We piloted it for a little while. And we actually lost money on the initial pilot programs we ran. It really wasn't, and this is true for everything, I think, it really wasn't until, because I was off being the group CEO of a $100 million company by this time, and it really wasn't until we both completely committed, which I think is another point for people, is until you completely commit, you're not going to get the results that you say you want. So even for us, when we tested Money and You in the market, when we first had the rights to it, we did a couple of pilot programs. We lost money on those programs. It was difficult. And we were like, dude, everyone loves it. Everybody wants it, but I can't figure out how to get people to find out about it. And then we finally committed, like really committed, and went, all right, we're in. We're just freaking going to go for it. And we put our money where our mouth was, and we invested in it. And then we had the largest program in the Western world this last May that Brett was at. For the last 25 years or something. So now we're expanding the work around the world with DC. We're going to be doing that over the next few years, helping her do that. We have a business school DC creates a business school that's happening in Cancun this November, and we're the global partners for her on that. And that business school is really about how do you lift your own business results and results in general, but particularly also about exploring the 3 prongs of renewable energy and what that's going to look like in the future. Warren Buffett says the greatest transfer of wealth humanity's ever seen is going to happen with the deregulation of energy. So what's going to happen in that renewable space, what's going to happen in new tech, and how does AI and robotics and all that stuff everyone's talking about actually going to affect mum and dad business down the street, and the rest of us, and how we work and how we live and how it will make our businesses redundant, and we better be prepared for that. And then the third part of the business school is really about impact businesses, contribution-based businesses that will change and solve humanity's problems. So what do those look like? And now we've got the technology to deal with those. So it's really an 8-day think tank about how we answer Bucky's question. How do you have 100% of, how does the world work for 100% of humanity with the least amount of ecological damage or offense to anyone? So that's what business school is really about. So Money and You's now, you know, the gift that keeps on giving. We get to participate with people who want to shift their wealth, change their lives, grow their businesses, shift their mindset around money and wealth, and be able to give more or do that unique project they have. And then, of course, we have Business School, which is really about what's the next 5, 10, 30 years going to bring, and how do we play at that level and change the face of humanity.
Can I ask a question?
It really is about us taking control for the next generation. You know, like I remember talking to my auntie, you know, who's 60 now, 65, and she kind of was disappointed that the 70s hippie movement, saving the world, didn't work. And I let her know it did. Like, we're still doing it. We're here. It's just we're not dressed like hippies anymore. We still care. We heard the story, but you know, like, unfortunately, you know, like, I'm a believer in evolution. I don't think evolution is a smart thing. It's slow, takes time, step by step. Before you know it, nothing's happened. But 20 years later, 30 years later, it's moving along. People are still thinking about it. And in another 30 years, we're going to be moving.
There's one song that we play. We play a song in Money and You, which was written by John Denver, right? And everyone gets the giggles about, oh, we're playing John Denver in 2017. But that guy, he was a visionary in terms of some of the stuff he did. So he wrote a beautiful song called The Full Moon Over India about we're the same as each other. And there's another one about It's About Time, which talks about everything that is still current today. It talks about the climate changing. It talks about the political face of the planet. It talks about some having everything and some having nothing. He talked about that in the 70s. And it's 2017. And every time we play it, I go,
yeah.
You know, I heard that song at My Money and You in 1993, and we still have those exact same problems, except so I don't get disheartened about that. The reality is that what was leading edge at that time is now much more common thought. So, you know, you've got to keep pushing at that forefront, because in 20, 30 years behind you, it will become the normal range of thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, you can see people doing it with veganism, right? At the moment, there's people out there making noise, and it's attracting some people to it. But it's now not the crazy hippies in Fillmore in San Francisco. It's lots and lots of people all over the planet. And another 20 years, everyone will be like, yeah, what were we thinking? Why did we ever do that? But it's going to be 20, 30, you know, and it's going to. But that's how it works, right? So DC was talking about social enterprise 30, 40 years ago. And now social enterprise is a thing. Not just from her work, but certainly 40 years of that with tens of thousands of graduates, a lot of them famous now, certainly has popularized it. But so are other people. But it's taken that long for now the market to go, yeah, that's just how we do it. Of course we give. Of course. Why wouldn't we give?
But that's how we do it without blowing up the ship, because if we threw out the baby and the bathwater and the tub all at once, we'd all be on the street. And I was very frustrated. I call it my own personal most hated 4-letter word, time, T-I-M-E. I mean, I was a raw vegan. I was a raw vegan chef on Martha's Vineyard because of my clientele was way ahead of the time. And I opened one of the first raw restaurants. I was doing a radio show back when no one would talk to me because they thought they were, Lisa was smart. Why is she talking so crazy about not taking even Tylenol or getting rid of pharmaceuticals? She's nuts, you know? But what it was is I was ahead of my time too. And I learned very early on, like, I wanted green nail polish. I'm from Martha's Vineyard, conservative, you know, duck belts and Fair Isle sweaters, a Dorothy Hamill haircut, end up over in punk Belgium. And I'm like, I want green nail polish, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I went and took acrylic paints and put it on my fingernails and put clear over going to school. And you're not going out in public wearing that craziness. And, you know, 2 years later, these girls made $10 million making the first black nail polish. I mean, so I get that it can't all go in one day, or we might blow it all up. But I have one question for a layman. I've always just gone in and created my own businesses. Private chef and caterer, because I didn't want to pay $10,000 a square foot for a shared kitchen on Martha's Vineyard. I'm like, I'll go to their house and I'll cook it there like people have asked me to do anyway. I'll get around having to have licensing at the Mass state level. They can't tell me what to do. And I can actually do things that are convenient for the people and me, and cut out the state that wants to take a ton of our money. But I was always creating the niche and just going and doing it. But so I've never really been a business boardroom person. I did a little bit early on, some comptrolling and, you know, temping for like Bank of America and things. I know, isn't that funny, Brett? Me temping for Bank of America. You don't know my history. It's a big laugh. But from what it sounds like, what you do now with your own companies, as well as what Money Matters to You does for its people, what they can take away from that. In my limited perception, I had great ideas, but I didn't have funding. I had people who had a lot of money, but I didn't know my own self-worth to feel confident to go ask to be funded. My father did give me $1,000 once to print up my first brochure that I created, but other than that, I didn't know my own value. But it sounds like, from my perspective, that people had great ideas. That's why they have that show Shark Tank, is it? I don't know. I haven't watched the TV in 2 years, but you have to go to a venture capitalist. And if your idea is good enough, you go and then they fund you, or they steal your idea and cut you out, whatever it is. But it sounds like you've turned this to take it instead of, you've taken away the need for the person with the idea and the person with the money, and you've put it all in there to level the playing field. So anybody who sits there and has enough trust and love in their own vision, the courage to do what fills them up, where they see something like, you know, I can't walk down the street and not pet a homeless dog. I can't feed them all, but I can give love to that one. You know, if they see the one thing, their niche, that's how we serve the world. And I'm all for technology taking over a lot of things we don't need. I'm for a resource-based economy. I'm for being able to not have to literally slave, you know, 12 hours a day to be able to buy a house and feed for your family. I want to have quality time with family. I want community. I also want private time. And I think that's where all of this is going, because we're changing what money means to us, how we need to do it, and we're changing it to what we came to do that thrives us. We had this conversation with Brett, remember? I mean, with Brian. It's not, what would you do? Well, I went from having no money to having money, and what do? I still do what I love. I help people a certain amount a day. I go out and have fun a certain amount a day. I go to yoga a certain amount a day, and that's why I keep going. And
well, I think the fact is, human beings actually love to contribute to others. It's just a natural part of us. So if you look at a child, right? My little boy is the love of my life, and cute, cheeky, and naughty, and smart, and generous, and kind, and naughty. Did I say naughty? Anyway, he is not going to be a follower very easily. But his natural, if he sees, like, his natural thing is to ask, do you need help? Well, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And children are like that, because human beings naturally want to contribute to others. So the thing I say to people who are starting a business is, some people get all caught up in, what if they steal my idea? Well, you know what? It has happened. It can happen, but mostly that's not what people are about. Mostly, you got to start sharing with people the game you're playing. You don't give away your specifics, but you want to share what it is you're up to, why you're up to it, and what you want to do about it, and how you're going to do it. Yeah. I know for me, every time I've gone to create something, I've told everybody what I was creating, why I was doing it, and asked them for help. Who do you know? How can you get me in front of? Blah, blah, blah. I had some of the most famous people in Australia speak, and around the world, speak at our Step Up events, because we asked them. We just asked them.
Absolutely.
Hey, we're doing this thing. Hey, would you come and share your story? And our speakers all had to be self-made, overcome poverty or some major adversity to be on our stage, and they had to be extremely successful entrepreneurs, so whatever. And we would just reach out and ask them, and they'd say, sure, absolutely, book me in. So I had 100, but the very first time I ever created that Step Up, in 13 weeks, I built the brand, I did all the legals, we got a local council to participate, money, we ended up, we were failing, we had 33 kids registered 3 weeks out when we booked enough catering and venue for 1,000. Everyone wanted to quit. But of course I refused, so we kept going, and we ended up getting on a famous TV show, morning show here in Australia, the day before the event, and we broke our phones. The phones just rang and rang and rang, and we had 400, nearly 500 registrations overnight, and some 227 kids show up, one of whom we know did not commit suicide because of that event. So for me, I was done at that point. Okay, I'm in. I'm doing this forever. If one kid comes and does that, I'm happy. That's all. That's good for me. That's we've done our job. So that was much more than, it was about much more than that. And I guess the reason I'm is that there were 100 people. We literally counted. There was 100 people exactly who touched that project to get that project live in 13 weeks.
Wow.
And all of it was just asking. So I told you, I said, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is why I'm doing it. Who do you know? How can you get me? Blah, 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 blah. Then you went and hit up your friend who knew how to get that or this or da, 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 da. And 100 people caused that result. And then we did that for another decade, right? So thousands of people caused that result. But, and they did it out of wanting to contribute. So you'd be amazed what human beings will contribute. So whether you're starting a non-profit or you're starting a for-profit, my experience has always been share the crap out of it, share it with, and you'll get lots of feedback of people going, really, why are you doing that? No, no, no. Just ignore the stuff that doesn't work for you and work with the people that are going to forward your gain. Just say thanks for sharing in your own head and move on. My little thing was want to bet. So I used to speak at Step Up, and I used to tell them every time I went to go do something, when I first went to set up my first business, everyone said, you're going to fail, it's going to be terrible. In my head, I never said it disrespectfully to anyone. In my head, I went, want to bet? You want to bet? Let's just bet. You want to bet? And in my head, I would just do that in my head. And so, and if anything, it just fueled me to be more determined. And then I did take on the feedback from the people who could see what I was up to and were being a contribution. Hey, I totally get that. What about you tweak it this way or that way? Not, that's crap, that's never going to work. Don't listen to those people. Listen to the people who actually get it and are going to tweak it with and for. And then I did that. I've done that in every venture I've ever had, and I continue to do it today. There's people in my life that are like, money and what? Well, you know, we have this life-changing program that's for people who want to shift their relationship to almost everything in their life. Relationship to money, their relationship to wealth, their relationship to what they can produce in the world and who they are as people. If you're interested in that, then do Money and You. Because it's not just about me, but it is about recognizing your value and add value to others and being able to realize a vision for the planet. And there's just no way to do that. If you're Gandhi, you can do it with nothing, right? But generally, I don't know about you, but I don't see too many other Gandhis floating around. So the rest of us have to find a means.
I tried to be. I tried it. I wasn't very successful. Have to find partners, have to find people who want to play, have to find people who are going to get it and support you, and you've got to be sustained as you do that. Because I do see a lot of people with really amazing consciousness projects or special projects where they want to make a difference, where they sacrifice everything. And it's a lose-lose game. You cannot sacrifice yourself and actually cause anything, because you'll destroy your well-being, your family, your level of comfort. And I'm not talking about people who are going on a spiritual journey who give up all the material things in the world. That's different. Go ahead, that's awesome. I'm talking about people who actually want to create something that makes a difference in the world. Well, to do that, you have to add value. And you can't add value if you are not valuing yourself and taking care of yourself. So you have to get sustainable financially. I don't care how spiritual your project is, how amazing it is, how it's going to change the planet. This is going to be, I mean, Elon Musk is an amazing example. He's doing exactly what Buckminster Fuller talks about doing. Fight the system that exists, you just build one that makes everything else obsolete. So, Uber did that. Apple did that. Business had an impact on the planetary level, like a humanity level. They haven't fought the existing model, they just made a better one.
You're right, and that's what I love.
You've got to be in a really good space.
Can I circle back again? Because here we went jumping. I want to bring back my crew. The people. I had people I had spiritual people, I had science people, I had law people, solver team. We had them all. I want to go back because how we got off on this was a conversation I was having. I was having this all one thing. No, I agree. There's a linear line. It is just different perspectives. But I was having this very same conversation today, explaining about, like, for example, my idea, my thing, somebody will steal it. It's all the perception. Because, like, even when I was a private chef and caterer, I didn't realize I was doing anything that was going to be successful. I thought these people were crazy paying me $75 an hour to just do what I would call garde manger, or cold prepared live living salad food. You know, I had no idea, you know, that by taking what I called meritage, taking a blend of things, and it was actually heresy back then to do, you either did French classical Escoffier, or you did Italian, or you did Asian. You didn't blend them all. Next thing you know, fusion's the big next thing. But my whole thing was I never hit a recipe. I would always tell everybody, they're like, oh, no, my recipe, it's me, it's my. I'm like, you give my recipe, I can give it to 20 people. They're not going to make what I make. And also, being copied, having your idea stolen is the biggest form of a compliment. Like when we first had Napster, remember Napster, where music was on the radio? And all you had to do was buy it, you go get it for free. What created value on Napster, or what had value, was what people were downloading the most. It was free, but it still had value because that showed you what people wanted when money was taken out of the game. So I see the whole schmeal from, don't be fearful about your idea being stolen. Don't be it's about getting out of the fear mentality, opening your heart, doing what you want to do, and inviting, instead of perceiving you're going to be fought or attacked or need to compete the way our social engineering and our cultures and our schools and everything has taught us. Compete against each other, kick them down the ladder. It has not been this, sir, but this is beautiful, because this is exactly what your program is doing.
Yeah, and what Bucky was saying 100 years ago, pretty much nearly 100 years ago, was that there will come a time on the planet where it's about collaboration, not competition. And money in you explore that. You explore, how do we collaborate? How do we do that effectively?
Yeah.
And how do we do it in a way that creates synergies that you could otherwise never, ever experience if you weren't collaborating, if you weren't open to collaborating, if you weren't willing to share yourself and be out there. So, you know, to have the conversation about money and you, it's much more, if you remember DC's purpose is to uplift humanity's consciousness. So really, you know, we did a survey of our graduates, and something like 92% of them said that money and you raised their level of consciousness. So, you know, as well as it's titled Money and You, you're going to get a whole new view into everything. Another 88% said that it has had a profound effect on their level of success. Profound effect. That's not a word you use lightly, right? And 9.1 out of 10 said that it was awe-inspiring. And the other thing that I think is astounding about Money and You is that 100% of our graduates would refer people to do Money and You.
Awesome.
Now, that's a crazy stat, right? If you've ever done any personal development or professional development, someone gets their nose out of joint about something all the time.
Yeah.
But 100% of our graduates would refer people to do Money and You. So that's an outrageous statistic. And you want to be in the inquiry about why is that? Well, why is it? Is because it's not just, it is about entrepreneurship. It is about wealth. It is about adding value. It is about creating financial success. And it's about being a human being. And it's about contribution and giving back and consciousness. And it's for me, I know you've got those different audiences, but you know, I'm living in this space where we're playing a financial game. I mean, business is a game. It's just one way to, you know, the output is a certain measure. If you add a lot of value, you win the game. If you don't, you lose the game. So the game is, first, add as much value as you can. It's really the name of the game. And then you'll get paid.
Yeah.
So that's really the nature of business for me. It's just a game to play. And the game of each business has to solve a particular problem. If you think about people who come from a science perspective, that's all they're doing. It's trying to solve problems. If you think about people who come from a spiritual perspective, in my experience of people who come from that perspective, and certainly it's a big part of how we come from, but it's really about, you know, how do we share the love and the light? So it's, again, solving a problem, right? How do we do that for the good of the greatest number?
Yeah.
And
forget about the stories.
I want to tie in the last piece of what she went through in her story. So the last piece of value that she had, that the program adds, and this is actually has a lot to do with why people are in debt, Brett, Mr. Debt Mastery. It's perceived, you know, even from the Catholic Church or whatever, that 10% of what you bring in, you should gift to those who don't have what you have. I always abided by that. I believe that I don't believe that I should need to give the IRS, you know, half of what I earn to print money out of thin air in a fiat money fractional reserve banking system where they get to create value out of thin air based on a stock on my left force. Well, you know, I had issues with that. So I try to do, I always, instead, I did not give. I mean, and Brett, I'm going to stop putting you on the spot, Brett. I just walked my talk and lived my life, and I've always given, and I've given to those who don't, and I've learned the lessons about giving. I first attracted people who couldn't create their own value and wanted to be the energy vampires, and then I've also given to people who don't really have any value in anything because they have whatever they want, so they're not interested. I rock the gamut, but I really believe in giving value to everything. I mean, I did my first radio show. I did 3 days a week. I forgot to keep my well full so I could fill others' cups. You've gone over it all, and I go to the extremes in order to find the middle. But it's really important, this whole piece, is that when you create that value, when it's not about giving to get, you just want to get. I want to take 10% of the profits of, you know, this particular fundraiser on the radio show to help people with cancer get their CBD oil, or I want to help kids learn how to be able to make fire in this village so that they can heat up their, whatever it is. It's about being able to give. When giving is not about getting. It's not that's emotional blackmail, or that's business.
It's not about that.
Either
It's just,
give to get, or
I'm not saying do something, give to get. I'm saying it just tends to be how the universe works. If you add value,
I'm showing how people change that thought. It used to be that way, but still, people who give. I mean, it's okay to have satisfaction for having done something good. Of course, that's the old Catholic BS. Oh, never have pride. Bullshit. I worked hard to be who I am, and I'm confident. I'm not going to act like I'm not confident just because some person has self-worth issues. I don't have time for stuff like that anymore. And if they're offended, well, you know, step up, honey. I'm a shadow worker. I go into dark places. I go in and die in order to come back learning how to surf a tsunami after getting wiped out by 10 of them. You know, that is what survivorship is about. But the whole point, this is to wrap it around. This teaches you how by giving value back to society is one of the key factors of thriving and doing what you love. And it's just part of the business model. It doesn't make it any, you know, it's what we have to do. It's what if we are inspired from our heart and our soul, we would want to give anyway. Yeah. And that's how it brings that spiritual piece back into. I just need, because speaking about time and money, I have clients to get to, and we can go on for hours and hours and hours here, but yes, I redirect. We wanted to get to 90 degrees as well, because I know that's the product you're webinar.
So we've been talking about money and you this whole time. So it's a 3.5-day program. It's not for everyone. Everyone's not for it. It is for people who want to play a big game on the planet, whether that's business or otherwise. It is for people who want to transform their relationships in life and in their work, their careers, their businesses, their projects. It is for people who want to transform their wealth. And generally it's for people who mostly people who come are already doing well. It's just they want to get that next level. How do they now scale? How do they impact a bigger number of people in a positive way? How do they play a bigger game? And I think, Brett, you're going to talk about tonight. We have a webinar on. It's called How to Master Your Money Mindset. So that's on tonight. And because you've been on here, you're of course welcome to attend that. And I think Lisa's going to share our webpage with you as well, so you're welcome to go and have a look there. There's information on information on information. I don't need to go into it. The fundamental thing is Money and You is a transformational experience. It is based on accelerated learning and experiential learning, and by that I mean we play games. We play a lot of games and learning activities, and in those games what ends up happening is you can see the mindset that drove the behavior that got you that result. So if you're anti-money, it will show up. If you're anti-yourself, it will show up. If you're, you'll see your own limiting beliefs, you'll see your own programming, you'll see your own patterns, and all of a sudden you'll be free of them. And when you're free of them, you can add more value to more people and have an extraordinary experience.
I think the most extraordinary thing I found was you are, when you're doing the course, you literally think you are one kind of person, and every time you do another game, you realize, yeah, right, I've got to get over there. I think I'm already there, but I'm way. And that is the eye-opener for me. I remember just going, yeah, right. But in other in other games, I was standing back going, I'm already there. Yeah, I love this. Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So it's every game will show you some distinct piece of your subconscious and your mindset, and teach you a particular strategy. Either it's going to drive up that stuff about your own personal subconscious and mindset and beliefs around money and wealth and success, or it's going to teach you a particular business strategy or concept that you can use in your career and your project and your business. Yeah, that it gets in at your bones kind of level. So it's an experience. It's a transformational experience. It's kind of, people talk about it as before money knew, after money knew. It's kind of that kind of level. Blue pill, red pill kind of stuff. And we have one coming up in September and one coming up in November here in Brisbane, Australia. Brisbane is the home of Money New for Australia, New Zealand, and the South Pacific. And of course, there's Money New held in the US and in Malaysia. Japan's opening early next year. India is expanding next year as well. So, and it happens every week in China. It's massive there.
Yeah, China.
So, yeah. So you have a look at the landing page, the web page that Lisa's going to share with you. Brad will send out the invite to the webinar. And then the other thing about giving back, Lisa, I just want to speak to is that a lifelong mentor of mine is a guy named Paul Dunn. And Paul, his now wife, she used to be a mentoree of his, Masami created this concept called B1G1, which is a business for good. So let's say I want to go buy a TV, or I want to go buy a spiritual course, or I want to go buy whatever. Every time, let's say I come to your business and I buy from you, your business then donates through B1G1 to something. So let's say someone bought a TV, I might give the gift of sight to people in Cambodia who are getting cataract surgery. Or if I buy a coffee, that coffee shop might donate free, clean drinking water for a child in Africa every time they sell a coffee, that kind of thing. So have a look at b1g1.com for a way to have people give back, because you can do personal micro giving and also business giving there, which is extraordinary. So for us, for example, every time we connect with someone on LinkedIn, which you're welcome to connect with me, we donate a day's medical care to a child in India. Every time someone connects with us on LinkedIn, not when they do business with us, just when they connect with us. And then we do the same for every time someone does Money New, we contribute to projects all over the world that need that giving. So, you know, it's that dichotomy. You don't have to have a project that makes a difference on the planet and be broke. You don't have to have a business that's evil. It doesn't give. Every business is designed to solve a problem, and every business gives in lots of different ways, from employment to the giving I'm talking about. So you can hear, even in the conversation, there's a lot of beliefs that we hold that aren't even our own mostly. They're mostly programmed in. They're mostly things we pick up, right? So the whole point at Money New is for you to see them really, what you have in your head that's made up, that's programming, that's patterns, that's stuff you've adopted over time, and then undo that such that you're actually free to choose. So if that's of interest to you and you have a game you want to play on the planet, then you should come and explore Money New.
Play the game.
What's so amazing here? Wait a minute, Robin, I just found out you and I were obviously connected on LinkedIn long before I ever met Brett, which is really interesting. But I actually have taken a bunch of different careers and turned them into what I do now. And my business is called Transcendence, as in DANCE, as in the dance of transformation and transcendence, that death rebirth. And I do emotional shadow work. I take people into those repressed emotional traumas, self-limiting beliefs that they hide from themselves, they lie from the world, and I show a mirror right in front of them. It doesn't really make me popular at first with them. I'm like, you're the one who need to come look in this. But what you do is business shadow work. Yeah. And it's transformational. It is a death. And you do. Remember we said in the beginning you were a caterpillar becoming a butterfly? Yeah. Well, caterpillars have these cells that are very unique to them, which allows them to transform and take dead material and turn it into living and change it and transform it. So it is that death rebirth process. So this is business shadow work. And when I tell them they can't succeed in life without having their personal shadow work. And what you do is you go in and you take them and you go, oh, they're looking over here. They're not. What most people don't realize is 90% of our perceived experience is run by our subconscious mind. That's why you can sit in the car, drink the coffee, talk on the radio show, wave at your friend and not crash your car. Now, that's well and good for functioning in habitual routine. But when we actually, a lot of what takes our life force is things we fear. I'm afraid, and we fear success. My personal experience and my personal transformation is that the only thing we really fear is our power. I think everything is a mirror of us fearing our own power here. But that's my personal perspective.
Well, I totally get that.
And it's awe-inspiring. And you used all the words. I love this. And I love it because it's proof that I've really come to a place where I don't have my issues of poverty and poverty consciousness and lack that it's inbred in generations for me. I see it all across my family, and they go, you act like you're entitled. I go, I'm entitled to breathe air and do what I want to do. I mean, I wanted to go to art school. They want me to go for genetic engineering because I can go to school for free. I'm like, no. You know? Pathetic. I love this. I love this. So let's go. I just want to bring it back around. We are on Consciousness Caffeine Radio. We've had an amazing show with our special Rainbow Warrior goddess, Ryll Doyle.
Thank you for having me.
No, I love this.
Wonderful.
We're going to have you back. Because everything we talked about, we need to go into for more timing. But first of all, I'll pass you to Brett and let him repeat your website and the B1G1. I love that you shared. And you guys,
thank you. Thanks for having me.
It is wonderful. I've put both the links up for the webinar tonight and the B1G1 in the live chat. So if you want to check that out, it will be in the link below as well. So come along, sign up for the webinar. Honestly, it's going to change your life. There's no doubt about it. Like, this is one of the reasons I came back and started doing this radio show, because I know Lisa and we've got this crazy. We're both loving the world. We both want to change people, and we both want to help people. And like, that's why I love Ubud. Like, there's a lot of people here that all want to do the same. And that's what you want to do. You want to find those people that you want to bond with and change the world and your life. So come along, definitely tonight. The links will be down below. Ryll, you're amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. So did you share, just a quick one, Brett, did you also share the landing page, the web page for Money and You?
Yes. Yep. I have shared that. I've now updated the Money and You page, the webinar, and the B1B2. B1G1.
Okay, great.
B1G1.
All right, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for having me. I hope that was of value for everybody, and I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope it contributed and got people thinking and added some value. So lots of love and all the best with everything you're up to. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. We have one little thing that we like to do. This is how I like to add value and close a circle. There's lots of rituals. We have a circle. We open it. We always go around and share what we're grateful for right before we say goodbye to the audience, because I think it's really important to start out and end my day on seeing what I'm grateful for as opposed to what I think I'm lacking.
Right.
So if you go there, but yes, we can all follow our dreams and succeed. I still can't believe that I left the United States with $147 in my pocket looking to find my tribe 2.5 years ago. And I still, I managed to get across Bali. And now we're talking, I'm in Prague touring Europe for the summer, talking to this amazing woman who has done everything. No, you are exactly where I had my blockage about money and how to create value in the world, because I thought we had to get rid of money. And that's not what we need.
No, use it. Use the thing that it is.
Thank you. But what are you grateful for today, Ryll?
I'm grateful for the conversation. That's it.
Awesome.
So just having a cool conversation about cool stuff that I think matters and makes a difference. So thank you very much for the opportunity to do that. I'm very grateful for the conversation, and for everyone who listened, and for you guys for being for hosting that kind of conversation. I mean, it's an unusual kind of conversation to have. So for the mainstream out there, so I really appreciate the
Not
action.
for us, but for the mainstream. I think we just might have evolved enough where we can get a little pick around mainstream and not so woo anymore. Yeah.
Right. Brett,
what are you grateful for?
I'm grateful for today. What am I grateful for? Well, actually, like, this is our third show. I'm grateful for that it came off pretty much without a hitch. I have been posting. I'm grateful for people who've been watching. Thank you very much. And we've been getting some comments. I've been chatting to people on Facebook, as well as I've put it out onto WhatsApp. I've got some comments from people from that. So everyone has been positive, grateful for just basically keep doing it. Keep doing this and never give up is what I'm grateful for. And it's in my mind.
Heaven yeah, heaven yeah.
Never give up.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Let's see.
What do you got?
I'm grateful. I'm grateful, first of all, for
Sorry, I
surviving.
didn't hear you. Sorry.
I did that last week. I did it. Don't worry.
I'm first grateful for this mirror with the world. I believe in the world as our mirror, and the world reflects back to you what's inside you, whether you can see it or not. So I'm really grateful for this mirror, and I'm like 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, oh, I have to talk money. I don't know. This was amazing. So
Okay.
I'm grateful for the conversation as well. I'm grateful that I survived a trip, Brett, and I didn't. Yes, I had got charged for my luggage, but it made it here. And I'm grateful to be back with the radio show. I'm grateful for the audience's patience while we're in the midst of transferring platforms from our usual way of being. We're trying to model that transition doesn't have to be graceful, it can be fun. And I'm grateful for about to be able to go have a cup of coffee and stare at the sunshine without mosquitoes. So I will leave that. No, I've been in the mood for a long time. I'm grateful to be in Europe and have flat, clean streets and no mosquitoes in my kitchen and a nice cushy bed that doesn't smell like mold. So, but with that, everyone, please, we got Money in You, Australia, the B1G1, Peace, Love, Abundance, and Joy. Let's get this party started. We're creating a new world.
So don't forget, sign up tonight. Come along to the webinar. You'll get more information about how it all goes. Ryll, it's been wonderful chatting. Thank you very much for turning up. Love you. Love you, Lisa.
Shine on. Peace, love, abundance, and joy. And money.
Yeah, very good.
Thanks.
All right, that's that. Ryll, really amazing. You're a financial shadow worker. I needed you 10 years ago. I could